2005 Jeep Grand Cherokee with the 3.7 liter. Going to change the oil pump on here. I'll give you a how to do. First things first though, start to drain out the antifreeze. And you can see under here, petcock there on the radiator. Just open it up, let that stuff drain into a bottle. It's a lot easier than trying to catch it in a pan and then putting it back in the bottle later to fill it up. Next, you get your pair of pliers that'll fit on to these clamps right here. Squeeze these two together, slide it back off the thing. Same with the lower radiator hose, slide that clamp off. Then you can remove these hoses right here.
There you go.
Same with the bottom hose, but you're probably gonna have a little bit of antifreeze come out of there because it's not 100% drained. So maybe put a catch bucket under that one when you take that hose off. Next important step, if you live in a hot, sunny state like Oklahoma, like I do, you gotta put a canopy up, give yourself some shade to work on. So all you got hitting you is the breeze instead of that big old mean ball of fire in the sky up there. Gotta have some shade. After you got your antifreeze all removed, got to start taking everything apart. The air box up here, need a regular flathead screwdriver. On the back side, there's a clamp here. Loosen up that clamp. You need to loosen that up. And then come around here. On the back side of the air box here. Can't see it very well, but there's a plug down here. Take this plug off. This is what the plug looks like. Then wiggle this, pull it out, get it out of the way. I forgot something. Those of you that don't have broken things like I do on mine here, down on the underside here and over here, two little bolts that have to be loosened up before you can slide this off. So once you got the clamp loosened up on the back, the wire taken off on the back side of this, don't do these. Give yourself some storage room here. Undo the clips that hold on the air cleaner box here. Wiggle this thing off, up out of the way. Take this off. Move your air filter, and in that box you got a nice place to put all the bolts that you're going to be taking off soon. Next thing you got to do, get yourself a ratchet, preferably a long handle, makes it easier, with a 15mm 6-point socket, because you are going to take off the serpentine belt right here. So down here on the idler pulley is also the tensioner. Put the ratchet on there, push it this way, and it will loosen up the belt. And I need to do this with two hands, so I'll stop recording, but belt will become loose and you can slide it off of here. Just remember the belt routing, because when you go to put it back together, you're gonna need to know where everything was. So starting at the crank down here on the bottom, it went up and around the power steering, and then up over the alternator, down under the water pump here, up over the air conditioner, around the outside tensioner, and then to the inside tensioner, back down to the crank. As with working on any car, almost anything you do, you always got to take off positive battery cable, so you know. So if you got Gorilla Grip from your masturbation experience, you can just slide this thing up. Not saying I got lots of experience. I always keep that loose. And then you can get yourself a 13mm socket and put on top of the alternator bolt here. Loosen this up, start disassembling everything, taking it apart. On the back of the alternator, there's a clip back here. You need to remove that clip so that you can pull the wires off here. Get these things out of your way somewhere safely. Make sure your battery's disconnected, because that will be a lot of power coming through here to touch on anywhere. You start doing some welding and don't want to. All right, now we gotta start taking everything apart one piece at a time, just like Johnny Cash says, one piece at a time. All right, so using that same 13mm socket on the alternator right here, the little 3-inch extension, you can get to this back bolt holding the alternator on. And then on the front here, 2 bolts that are 15mm. Take those out. You can lift the alternator up off of there. Put the bolts back in place so you don't lose them. Now that the 3 bolts are out, you can wiggle the alternator until it comes up out of place there. And then, like I said, don't forget to put your bolts back in there so they don't get lost. You know, things are important so they can always remember where they go. Since this one here doesn't have anything to screw into, but on the alternator itself, it's got a threaded place because that's where it goes. Screw it into the alternator. Now you got to remove the AC compressor. Unhook this electrical clip right here, 15mm bolt right here, 15mm bolt right here, and a 13mm bolt back here on the back side. Take those 3 out. Don't forget where they go, because you're going to put them back when you're done. And then you're going to loosen up this 15mm bolt. Taking this one out, loosening this one up. Then don't loosen these up. Don't do that. We'll just move this thing out of the way and lay it over here in the air box. Now, once you got that 15mm bolt removed, the 15mm bolt right there removed, this one loose, this bracket right here, this bracket will fall out of your way. Got the 13mm bolt out there removed. You can lift this thing up, move it out of your way, set it over there in the air box so you can do everything else you got to do. All right, with the air compressor out of the way, you put the 13mm bolt back in its location. This 15 won't thread into here, so put it back in location on the air compressor there. And this one is going to be back in here just temporarily. You'll find out why later. And then you need a 13mm socket to take this bolt out of the middle of the tensioner so we can remove this tensioner. I suggest using a 3-inch extension. You can do it without the extension, but this way we'll give you a straighter shot at it without damaging the bolt head. All right, now heater hoses down here. I took this one off already. It's got the same kind of clamps that the radiator hoses have. I move this clamp up out of the way. Once you get the clamps off or loose, you can wiggle them around enough to pull the heater hoses up out of the way. Very important step. You're gonna need a 21mm socket, ratchet. We need to turn this crank down here. There's a timing mark in the harmonic balancer that needs to line up over here. We need to set the mark on top dead zero. Very important. But do not turn it counterclockwise. Only turn it clockwise. I can't turn it and hold the phone at the same time, so I'll set the timing at top dead center. It might seem like you don't need to do that, but right now you need to do that. Now do as I say, not as I do. Anyway, that 21mm socket, use that to break the bolt free on that harmonic balancer. That harmonic balancer has got to stay on the top dead center mark. You use a ratchet and something to hold this still so you can turn that bolt counterclockwise. But me, I use an impact gun to take it off, and it only set it back just a tiny little bit on the timing, but I pushed it back by hand. Well, turned it back by hand. But don't use an impact gun unless you have lots of experience, because you don't want to mess up your crank down there. Now I need to remove the harmonic balancer way down there at the bottom, that big one right there. To do that, you need a puller to do it. They are pressed on there. I've been doing it with a different kind of puller that doesn't always work, so I finally broke down and bought this one on Amazon right here. It was only like $20 or $25 or something, but this is made to go onto that pulley and hold on to it. Should have all the clearance you need. So yeah, this should make my life easier. This is my first ever time using one of these pullers. You know, that the shank right here that the ratchet's on goes into there and pushes on the crank. But these rods, it need the long rod to go inside the middle of it. But anyway, my point is, turning this thing, even right from the beginning, was so easy. I think even a 4-year-old kid could sit and spin this ratchet to take this puller or pulley off of here. It is so dang easy. I got the harmonic balancer off. Now it's easier to show you what I talk about with it. On the back side of it here, see this long rod right here? It's going up into the inside of this, and a puller, yeah, there you go, see, on the inside of that, and the jaws on this thing right here, you can see they will latch onto that, pull off so easy. For those of you that are going to change your water pump at the same time, you should take out every bolt around the water pump, but be sure to mark what position they go in, because they're all different sizes, different lengths. But those of you that are going to keep the same water pump on there, there's only 3 bolts that you need to take out to be able to remove this whole set on the water pump. That's this bolt. See, I've already got it out. This bolt is already out, and this bolt right here, it's already out. 1, 2, 3. Those are the 3 that will need to come out to remove the timing chain cover, just on the water pump. Everything else, there's bolts all the way around it that need to come off, but for the water pump, those 3 bolts need to come out. 13mm socket and a ratchet will take, 10 bolts all the way? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 bolts all the way around the timing chain housing. And then you have 1 bigger bolt right here. Keep this one in here till last so you can take out all the other bolts, but leave them in there. Like I said before, different lengths, different sizes. You don't need to pull them completely out. Just make sure that they are not threaded in anymore. And then finally, remove this 1 big bolt right here, and this thing will come off pretty easy. Got the timing chain cover off. This is the big bolt, last one that was still on there, holding it on. 17mm deep well socket. You know, look like that. Thing comes off pretty easily. My gasket's new, so I'm going to reuse it, not going to change it. But anyway, next I need to pull off this valve cover, and anything that's in the way, just so I can get to it, because I need to pull off timing chains. Remember, we set the timing at top dead center earlier, so all these timing marks are all lined up where they need to be to avoid any confusion. Which means this timing mark right here is at 12 o'clock. This one right here is at 10 o'clock. Behind here is another one somewhere that are pointing straight down to the intermediate shaft. Chain down in there, and I'll show you later, but these ones are level flush, and this one is level flush with horizon. Let me make a correction here. You can't really see the timing mark on this gear here, but the keyway is at 2 o'clock, not 10 o'clock. This will be the end of part 1. Time to go home and make dinner, so I cleaned up, put everything away. Begin to start part 2 tomorrow. It shouldn't take all day if I get here early enough.